Part 20. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 191. Report to Your Majesty, BNK has brought. Separated by a bead curtain, Xiaopingan stood outside the house and looked at the situation in the room. The waiter who brought Xiaopingan here announced loudly outside the bead curtain. Let BNK come in. King Xuanhuan on the bed raised his hand and said weakly. The two guards standing outside the bead curtain opened the bead curtain and allowed Xiaopingan to enter the house. As soon as he entered the room, Xiaopingan felt two cold eyes falling on him. The owner of those eyes was not tall, in his 40s, wearing a dark robe, with a few long strands of hair. Bearded, wearing a mountain crown, a pair of triangular eyes squinting, looking at himself. Behind this man, there were several imperial doctors standing neatly, looking at him curiously. There was only one person who he had never met before, but who was hostile to him, and that was Li 11, the imperial physician of the Qin dynasty. Xiaopingan even knew that if he saw a doctor for King Xuanhuan later, Li 11 would pick a bone next to him and threaten King Xuanhuan, saying that BNK was not good at medical skills. King Wu of Qin was made deaf and blind. A few thoughts flashed through Xiaopingan's mind, and he came to King Xuanhuan and bowed. BNK has met the king. No courtesy, King Wu of Qin still said feebly. He looked at Xiaopingan and said directly, I heard that you travel all over the world and have great medical skills. The prince of Guo kingdom is dead, and you can save it. Come here and you can bring him back to life. This medical skill is really amazing. Your Majesty, BNK does not dare to take credit. The prince of Guo kingdom is not dead. He just suffered from cadaver syndrome and faked his death. That's why I was able to save him. If he is really dead, no matter how powerful I am, there is nothing we can do, Xiaopingan said modestly. When he saved the crown prince of Guo and made BNK famous throughout the world, when he heard what Xiaopingan said without boasting, King Wu of Qin became more energetic and had more confidence in Xiaopingan. Well, look at me. Can the current disease be cured? I need to feel the king's pulse. Okay, just come here and feel your pulse. King Xuanhuan smiled slightly and stretched out his hand. Several attendants standing next to him quickly took a silk pillow and placed it on King Xuanhuan's hand. Xiaopingan walked over, sat down, gently put his hand on King Xuanhuan's pulse, and at the same time looked at King Xuanhuan with his divine eyes. Just looking at this pairing made Xiaopingan feel shocked. Before coming, Xiaopingan thought that King Xuanhuan injured his waist because of judoing. But now, Xiaopingan discovered that King Xuanhuan, who looked extremely strong, not only injured his waist, but also had problems with his heart and kidneys. King Xuanhuan's heart was very excited, which was contrary to common sense. Looking with his divine eyes, he saw that there was a vague black energy lingering in King Xuanhuan's heart. The black energy made King Xuanhuan's heart always be in a state of excitement. Middle. That black gas is not produced by the body, but a toxin that is harmful to the heart. King Xuanhuan himself could not feel this kind of excitement of his heart pulse, and it would not kill him in a short time. However, this kind of heart pulse is always in an excited state, which goes against the principle of yin and yang of the human body and affects the human heart. The pulse and heart will suffer huge damage and bring a huge load. Over time, when a person does strenuous exercise and the heart beats rapidly, the heart pulse will burst at any time, killing the person. Now King Wu of Qin is still alive, but Xiaopingan knows how King Wu of Qin died in the future. He died suddenly while lifting the tripod. History books say that King Wu of Qin died without mercy when he lifted the tripod and was broken by the lifted tripod. He died from the tibia, but in fact, if the tibia on a person's foot was broken, it would not kill him at all. Especially since King Xuanhuan's body was so strong, how could he die just because the bones on his foot were broken? The heart pulse belongs to fire, and the heart pulse is excited, so King Xuanhuan has an extremely intense temper and likes strenuous exercise. King Xuanhuan's kidneys also had toxins. The toxins directly caused the essence of the internal and external kidneys of King Xuanhuan not to interact with each other, producing dead sperm and making him infertile. This is why in history King Wu of Qin was strong and prosperous, and his harem was filled with beauties. But the reason why he has been childless. The heart pulse opens to the ears, and the kidneys opens to the eyes. If the problems of the heart pulse and kidneys are not cured, it may really make King Wu of Qin deaf and blind. This is why the imperial doctor ordered Li 11 to dig holes for BNK. He told King Wu of Qin that BNK might cure him of deafness or blindness. The death of King Wu of Qin was not due to died without mercy while lifting the cauldron, but because his heart burst and his heart died suddenly when he was lifting the cauldron. He died suddenly and was unable to support the huge cauldron he lifted. Then the cauldron fell and broke his foot. Zhuibin is the result, not the cause, of King Xuanhuan's death. When King Xuanhuan died, Li 11 was still the imperial physician and was qualified to diagnose King Xuanhuan's death. It was Li 11 who attributed King Xuanhuan's death to the broken tibia caused by the tripod. Li 11 first tried his best to prevent BNK from seeing a doctor in front of King Xuanhuan, and then sent a killer to assassinate BNK. Finally, he confused right and wrong and reversed the cause and effect of King Xuanhuan's death. In addition, there were only a few people who could poison King Xuanhuan for a long time. Not much, it seems like. Xiaopinggan was calm on the surface, but a huge wave suddenly surged in his heart. The excitement of discovering the hidden truth in history made Xiaopinggan, a former graduate student of the history department of Yuan Vocational and Technical College, tremble all over. History is indeed a little girl who can be dressed up by others. Many truths will never be written in history books. In history, why did BNK leave Xianyang immediately after treating King Wu of Qin once and did not dare to stay in Xianyang longer? It was because BNK already knew that King Wu of Qin had been poisoned, and there was something behind the poisoning. It may involve the struggle for the throne of the King of Qin. Behind the throne of the King of Qin, there are other big countries involved. The water is too deep and unfathomable, and BNK does not dare to step in. King Wu of Qin died at the age of 23 and had no son. Who would inherit the throne of King Qin? King Wu of Qin was very assertive. When he was alive, he expelled Zhang Yi, formed an alliance with Wei, and united with Yu to control Chu. He was a promising king. However, Queen Mother Xian was born in the kingdom of Chu, and she also had Queen Mother Xian's half-brother Wei Ran. Now they are also very powerful in the court. One of these two people is in the palace, the other is in the court. Li 11 sent people to kill BNK, not because he was jealous or afraid that BNK would threaten his position, but because he was afraid that the conspiracy would be exposed and silenced. Li 11 is just a tool, and there are people behind Li 11. Whoever controls the imperial physician's order can control the life and death of the emperor in the palace. This is the most secret unspoken rule in the palace. Turning doctors into the most secretive killers has started since the Warring States period. Damn it! Xiaopingyan didn't expect that he would find such a discovery when he entered Qin Palace. While feeling the pulse of King Xuanhuan, he secretly glanced at Li 11 and found that Li 11 looked extremely nervous, obviously afraid that he would find something. What to do? Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 192. Seeing Xiaopingyan's face remained unchanged and silent, everyone in the room focused on Xiaopingyan. How is it? How is my health? King Xuanhuan asked. When King Xuanhuan asked this, Li 11's expression became even more nervous. Xiaopingyan saw Li 11's throat slide and swallowed quietly. Xiaopingyan let go of his hand to check King Xuanhuan's pulse, pondered for a moment, and glanced around without trace, especially the animal-headed copper incense burner on the table next to King Xuanhuan, and asked directly, I didn't know before. Who is diagnosing, treating, and prescribing medicine for adults? I have been in the palace for many years. I used to treat the king and prescribe medicine. The king has always been very good. Do you have any questions? Li 11 spoke directly and glared at Xiaoping'an with a fierce look, but upon closer inspection, he looked a bit fierce. Is the king always good? I emphasize that I feel guilty. Xiaoping'an had already made up his mind, but now he became more and more calm. He smiled and cupped his hands towards Li 11, I wonder what I call this lord. I am Li 11, the imperial physician of the great Qin dynasty, Li 11 said proudly. Ah, it turns out to be the famous Lord Li 11. When I first came to Dakan, I heard that Lord Li 11 has extraordinary medical skills. When I saw him today, he is indeed extraordinary, Xiaoping'an said with a smile. Li Xiang's eyes flashed with a strange color. He originally thought that Xiaoping'an would criticize him, but looking at Xiaoping'an's expression and attitude, it seemed that he didn't want to cause trouble for him, and he didn't find any problems with King Qin. This made Li Xiang feel sad. He relaxed a little, but Li 11 still had a reserved expression on his face, and said with a gun and a stick in his words, it's easy to talk, I am in the palace all year round, and I go to few places. You are no better than BNK, who can travel around the world. Being able to come into contact with so many ordinary people, I heard that you used to be a dormitory chief in Bohai County, but for some reason you suddenly became a doctor. Li 11's words were asking on the surface, but in fact they were belittling BNQ's identity. I'm studying medicine in the middle, so naturally there are still many things I don't understand. Lord Li 11 is well informed in the palace. I just have a question I want to ask. Can Lord Li 11 give me a step? Li 11 snorted coldly, walked up to Xiaoping'an with a proud look on his face, held his head high and asked, what's the problem? I wonder why Lord Li 11 poisoned the king, Xiaoping'an said. The whole room was shocked, and everyone was shocked. Li 11's body trembled and he almost softened. You. Just when Xiaoping'an said those words, at the moment when everyone was shocked, Xiaoping'an had already picked up the copper incense burner on the table with one hand. At the moment when Li Xiang was stunned and his body went weak, the person beside him before anyone had time to react, Xiaoping'an used all his strength to pick up the copper incense burner weighing 7 or 8 kilograms in his hand, and hit Li 11's temple heavily with the ear of the copper incense burner. Li 11's head is certainly not as hard as the incense burner. With just a bang, Li 11's head was hit by the copper incense burner in Xiaoping'an's hand, causing blood to spurt out from all his orifices, and his neck was almost broken. He fell to the ground without saying a word. Amidst the sound of swords being unsheathed, Xiaoping'an was standing there before he could move. Several long swords were already placed on his neck. The master guards around King Qin immediately surrounded Xiaoping'an. Filled with murderous intent, staring at Xiaoping'an one by one, waiting for King Qin to look at him and beheading Xiaoping'an to the ground. The bronze sword on his neck was so cold that the hair on Xiaoping'an's neck exploded. Looking at Li 11 who fell to the ground, his brains bursting out and spilling on the ground, Xiaoping'an threw the incense burner in his hand with a clang, laughed, and felt refreshed physically and mentally. It was really good to get rid of this garbage first. The history in this world pearl can indeed be changed. Even if King Qin now orders the guards around him to kill him, he will kill the trash Li 11 one step ahead and take revenge in advance, and this history will change. Of course, King Qin would not just kill him, he would at least ask for the reason. And the people behind Li 11 will feel relieved when they see that Li 11 died so cleanly and before they could be confessed. In order to avoid suspicion, they will not jump out to target themselves in the future. That way just don't bring it upon yourself. Therefore, Li 11 must die now, die immediately, die neatly and without giving him a chance to bite back, so that he can have a chance of survival. A guard next to him immediately squatted down to check Li 11's injury. The squatting guard just touched Li 11 under his nose and on both sides of his neck, then shook his head at King Qin and stepped aside. BNK, what are you doing? Why did you kill my imperial physician, King Qinwu was shocked and asked, sitting up from the bed. Your Majesty, when I saw this despicable villain who poisoned your Majesty under the guise of being a doctor, I couldn't bear it just now and wanted to smash his dog's head to pieces. Xiaoping'an calmly faced King Qinwu. Said. Hearing Xiaoping'an say that he was poisoned again, King Qinwu's expression changed. Why did you say that he poisoned me? What kind of poison was I poisoned? There are two poisons in the king's body. One is the poison of the heart meridians, and the other is the poison of the kidney essence. The poison in the king's heart meridians can make it difficult for the king's heart meridians to last long. If not treated in time, it will not take long. Once if the king is overly stimulated by external forces, if his heart pulse is cut off, he will die in an instant, and the poison of the kidney essence that the king is exposed to will make the king still childless after working hard in the harem for many years. The poison in the heart made King Qinwu a little suspicious, but the 4 words Xiaoping'an said, no children in the harem, suddenly hit the point in King Qinwu's heart that he feared the most. It is a big taboo for an emperor to have no queen, which may shake the foundation of the Qin dynasty. Since he came to the throne, King Qinwu has had many beauties in his harem. In addition, he is young and strong, and countless concubines and beauties in the harem are vying for favors every day. They have tried their best to win over King Wu of Qin. There was almost no idle day at night, but even so, after several years of hard work, none of the beauties in the harem were pregnant. This made King Qinwu himself doubt whether he had an unspeakable problem. I don't think there is anything wrong with my heart, but I have no children in my harem, and everyone in the palace knows it. How can you prove to me that I have been poisoned? Because of the poisoning, your Majesty's heart is always in a state of excitement and anger, just like a wooden bridge on a river, with a constant stream of ox carts carrying heavy objects crossing the bridge. In this way, the wooden bridge will not last long, your Majesty. The same principle applies to your heart pulse. It's not that your Majesty doesn't feel that there is a problem with your heart pulse, it's that your Majesty feels it but doesn't know what's going on. The 5 internal organs and the 5 emotions are connected, and problems with your heart pulse will be reflected in your Majesty's dreams. Your Majesty, does he have many dreams at night, and is he often angry in his dreams, often fighting or killing people in his dreams? Hearing Xiaoping'an tell the story of his dream, King Qinwu finally showed a look of shock, hoping that Xiaoping'an would be right. King Wu of Qin was worthy of being the emperor of Qin. He had seen big scenes. He quickly calmed down and continued to ask, how can you be sure that it was Li 11 who poisoned me? The king's poison has deep roots and lasts for a long time. It is not poisoned by one person in one moment, but must be poisoned by someone around the king who can control the king's diet and decoctions over the years. As an imperial physician, Li Xiang is at your Majesty's side every day to check your pulse. It is impossible for him to be unaware of the poison in your Majesty's heart and kidneys, and the fact that he hid it from your Majesty and everyone else can only mean that he was the one who poisoned your Majesty. Your Majesty can think about it again. Then has Li 11 always prevented other doctors from treating His Majesty? Is it true that Li 11 is personally responsible for the decoctions and medicines His Majesty takes every time and never relies on others? The expression on King Qinwu's face finally darkened, his eyes flashed, he waved his hand gently, and the several master guards who put their swords on Xiaoping'an's neck immediately put away their swords and retreated. Can the poison in my body be removed? Xiaoping'an finally smiled slightly. As long as I live, I can remove the poison from the king's body bit by bit, restore the king's body, and give him a son in just 3 months. It only takes 3 months for me to have a son. Do you really mean what you say? King Qinwu suddenly stood up with excitement. If the king is still childless in 3 months, the king will chop off my head. Li Xiang's death brought a bloody storm in Xianyang city, especially in the palace. Those palace maids and eunuchs who had close contact with Li Xiang, as well as the imperial doctors promoted by Li Xiang, were directly killed and exiled by King Qinwu. Several court officials who were good friends with Li 11 were also implicated, and were either transferred or demoted. For a time, people in Xianyang City were panicked and there was a tremor. Because Li 11 did not confess anything when he died, the scope of King Qinwu's purge was limited and did not expand much, and the fire was not drawn to Queen Mother Xian and others. In this atmosphere, Xia Ping'an was appointed as the imperial physician of Great Qin by King Wu of Qin. King Qinwu also sent a team of trusted guards to protect Xia Ping'an's safety at all times, for fear that Xia Ping'an would be assassinated. Under Xia Ping'an's care, King Qinwu's body gradually recovered. Finally, 3 months later, good news came from King Qinwu's harem. The queen and 2 concubines were pregnant at the same time and were confirmed to be pregnant. When the news came, Jizhu's world suddenly shattered. The divine power obtained this time was too much, and it definitely exceeded the upper limit that the perfect integration of this world bead could achieve. Xia Ping'an had a preliminary feeling that he gained divine power by merging this world bead, reaching an astonishing 186 points. The powerful effect of the surging divine power on the body, which was brought about by the divine power, suddenly submerged Xia Ping'an's entire body. The effect of this divine power on the body was almost comparable to what happens to the body after the divine power exceeds 210 points. Variety. What's happening here? It seems that those who break through the historical destiny of the world pearl can receive additional divine power rewards, and this reward is very considerable. Late at night, in the darkness, a shadowy uninvited guest quietly arrives outside the apartment building. In an inconspicuous corner of the street outside the apartment building, the black dragon lying in the shadow like a stray dog suddenly woke up. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 193. Golden Summoner. The Black Dragon was released when Xia Ping'an left the apartment before. It was Xia Ping'an's eyes outside the apartment to be prepared. No one would care about a stray dog in a corner of the street at night. It was the Black Dragon who made another great contribution tonight, providing Xia Ping'an with an early warning at the critical moment. In the apartment room, Xia Ping'an had just experienced a powerful wave of divine power. Before he even had time to see the changes in the secret mandala, he felt the warning signal sent to him by the Black Dragon. In the darkness, Xia Ping'an's eyes suddenly opened, and with a flash of light in his eyes, he suddenly flashed to the bedroom window, turned sideways, slightly opened a corner of the curtain, and looked downstairs. There were no street lights on the street downstairs. In the darkness, figures flickered and surrounded the exit of the apartment building. At the outermost layer of the encirclement, Xia Ping'an saw the police in Shangjing City. A group of police blocked both sides of the street outside the apartment and set up guns on the street. The people responsible for surrounding the apartment moved swiftly and silently. They were all wearing plain clothes or robes. It was unknown whether they were policemen, bounty hunters, or bodyguards. Judging from the aura of those people, most of them were summoners. Among those people, there were 2 summoners, 1 male and 1 female, wearing black cloaks. The auras of those 2 people were very strong, at least they were already in the Tu-Yang realm. When others quietly surrounded the apartment, the 2 summoners stood behind those people, seeming to be directing everyone's actions without being impatient at all. One of the summoners even took out a lamp to light. When you stand up, the lamp can detect the fluctuations of divine power around you. After just a quick glance, Xia Ping'an retreated into the room for fear of being discovered by those people, and then used a remote viewing perspective from the sky outside the window to watch the actions of everyone below. Are those people below here for you? To answer this question, it was very simple for Xia Ping'an. He just recalled in his mind the appearance of the 2 dog-legged bodyguards next to Mr. Sun whom he met at the night market. In just an instant, Xiaopinggan's remote vision. The location of one of the dog-legged bodyguards was locked under a big tree by the river more than 5,000 meters away from the apartment. 2 black carriages were parked, and the bodyguard was standing next to the carriages. In addition to the bodyguard, the man named Sun was also standing next to the carriage, talking to a man in a police uniform. Sure enough, it was for myself. Below the apartment building, with a wave of a summoner's hand, the locked door below the apartment building silently opened. Then, those people waiting at the door poured in, all pouring into the apartment. There are still many people watching outside. Damn it! Xiaopinggan had no idea how these people locked his position, but at this time, he was not allowed to think or hesitate anymore. The moment those people acted, Xiaopinggan also started to act. The people who poured into the apartment from outside the apartment door acted quickly and immediately controlled the entrance and exit at the foot of the apartment building, and then quickly rushed towards Xiaopinggan's floor. Among those people, there was a summoner. As soon as he rushed into the apartment building, his whole body was wrapped in black smoke. The black smoke came out from his body like black snakes. Going to other rooms in the apartment building, any room that was penetrated by the black snake, the people in the room instantly fell into a deep sleep, and they no longer had any awareness of what was happening outside. The entire apartment building fell into deathly silence in the blink of an eye. In less than a minute, the door outside Xiaopinggan's room was crowded with people. More than 10 people stood at the door and on the walkways on both sides, ready to go. One of the summoners in black robes made a gesture. In front of the door, a man holding a giant axe and a man holding a heavy hammer looked at each other. The 2 men holding the heavy hammer and the giant axe raised their weapons, fell hard and hit Xiaopinggan's apartment door at the same time. That hammer contained the fighting spirit cultivated by those 2 people. The strong security door of the apartment was smashed open under that hammer. However, at the moment when the security door was violently smashed open, several mysterious runes suddenly lit up on the door, and balls of bright and hot orange-red flames were like rolling fire dragons released from hell. He opened his bloody mouth and swallowed up several people at the door in an instant. The 2 people holding the heavy hammer and giant axe, and the 2 people behind them, had no time to retreat or escape. They didn't even make a sound. The moment the door was smashed open, their whole bodies burned, as if they were in purgatory, into ashes. This door turned out to be a trap. The action of smashing the door instantly activated the runes on the door, which was equivalent to stepping on thunder. Rune Master! The summoners behind them screamed in fear, quickly summoned body protection spells amidst the rolling flames, and quickly retreated. A summoner who masters rune skills is terrifying in battle. Not only can he cast summoning spells in the form of runes, but those rune spells can be passively triggered, making it difficult for people to guard against it. They don't know when they will be caught. A summoner waved his hand, and more than a dozen slave soldiers were summoned instantly. The slave soldiers with the flashing red light were not afraid of death, braving the rolling flames at the door, and rushed directly towards the door. The slave soldiers in the front were directly transformed into nothingness in the flames, while the slave soldiers in the back rushed into the room when they saw that the flames had stopped. The moment the first slave soldier stepped into the room, a light flashed on the floor of the room, and a large net appeared out of thin air, directly catching the first slave soldier who rushed in and the ones behind him. Several slave soldiers gathered together and blocked the narrow doorway, completely blocking the door into the room, making it impossible to advance or retreat. And almost at the same time, the window outside the living room of the apartment suddenly exploded, and Xiaopinggan's figure appeared in the window. With a wave of his hand, a total of 50 elite slave soldiers fell from the sky in the red light, and landed outside. On the street. As soon as the slave soldiers appeared on the street, 50 spears were thrown out towards the summoner surrounding the apartment. No one expected that Xiaopinggan would summon such a large scale when he made his move. Those 50 elite slave soldiers fell from the sky, catching the people surrounding them off guard. For a moment, the street outside the apartment was colorful, and various summoning spells interacted with each other outside. The street was in chaos, and several flaws appeared in the encirclement in an instant, and they were rushed away by this group of elite slave soldiers. The moment those slave soldiers were summoned and landed on the street outside, Xiaoping's figure also jumped out of the window under the protection of those slave soldiers and landed firmly on the ground. Just as the surroundings were in chaos, Xiaoping's figure like lightning, he rushed out of the encirclement in a flash, dodged several flying fireballs, and rushed towards the cordon set up by the police on the side of the street. Bang 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 bang. In panic, the police opened fire. Intensive gunfire broke the tranquility of the night, but Xiaoping's figure flashed strangely in the darkness, using the buildings and terrain on the street to avoid the police's shooting, and finally the whole figure passed through like a wisp of blue smoke. The shooting of a group of nervous and hurried police officers disappeared into the darkness in the blink of an eye. It was not until this time that the chaos caused by the 50 elite slave soldiers summoned by Xiaoping calmed down. Under the attack of a group of summoner spells, the 50 elite slave soldiers were quickly completely wiped out. Chase. The summoner of the Air Yang realm who was guarding outside the apartment building roared and immediately chased Xiaoping in the direction where he disappeared. Damn, I was so embarrassed this time. So many people besieged a One Yang realm summoner and set up a heavy siege. They actually let the summoner strike first and escape in the chaos. The summoners guarding outside the building all felt their faces burning, it was so embarrassing. Upstairs, the net that trapped the slave soldiers was finally burned in the light of the fire, and a group of summoners swarmed in from the door. The room was empty, there was no one around, the windows were shattered, the curtains were fluttering in the night wind, the floor of the room was littered with fragments of glass and windows, and the shouts of killing had already come from the street outside. A summoner rushed to the window, glanced at the street below, roared angrily, jumped from the window, and chased after him. In the blink of an eye, there was no one in the crowded room. Those summoners came in quickly and left even faster. After the room and the outside of the apartment were empty, a white wall in the room moved, and a white figure walked out from behind the wall. The illusion disappeared, revealing Xiaoping's figure and face. Xiaoping's eyes flashed with cold light, and he looked in the direction of Mr. Sunday. He moved, jumped down from the window, and disappeared into the darkness outside the house. The latest chapter address of Golden Summoner, TTP. Read the full text of Golden Summoner at TTP. Golden Summoner text download address, TTP. Golden Summoner mobile reading, TTP. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click collect below to record the reading record of this time, chapter 193 breakout, and you can see it next time you open the bookshelf. If you like Golden Summoner, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 194. Trash, trash, even a group of pigs are more useful than you. What do so many of you do for food? Xuanhuan was almost going crazy. His face was twisted and his eyes were burning, and he pointed at the two rewards standing in front of him. Golden Hunter, more than 20 summoners, 8 warriors, and more than 40 policemen are assisting you. I have told you where he is, but you can still let that person run away. Are you pigs? There are so many people, you can't even catch one person, that person is just a summoner from Yi Yang realm. Xuanhuan almost burst out of anger. In order to lock in the target, he had spent a lot of money tonight, and when he invited these bounty hunter teams to come over, he spent a lot of money, throwing out more than 2,000 gold coins, but in the end he didn't even catch a single hare. Just for 1,000 Fantasy Boys World Pearl? Xuanhuan has already regretted it. Up to now, the resources and price he has paid for the Qianhuan Boy World Pearl have far exceeded the value of the World Pearl. The key is that after paying so much, it is still in vain. This kind of additional investment may not seem like much at the beginning, but with continued investment, the final result can make people's hearts tremble. Sun Hao felt that he was riding a tiger now, like a fish that had been bitten by a hook. The funny thing was that he took the initiative to jump on the hook and bite it, and the bite became deeper and deeper. Now the fish hook was stuck in his throat. He couldn't swallow it and couldn't spit it out, which was extremely uncomfortable. There was a lot of noise tonight. The police opened fire just now, which alarmed many people. Some people have already called the police. After working all night, neither the World Pearl nor the person was caught, and he still had to figure out how to deal with the aftermath. When he thought of this, Sun Hao felt like smoke was rising from his throat. But until this moment, Sun Hao didn't feel that this was his problem. All the faults were the fault of the guy who ran away. If that guy had known better at the night market and didn't embarrass himself, then things wouldn't be like this later. Too many things. Thinking of Xiaoping'an's cold eyes, Sun Hao was filled with hatred. Under the illumination of the roadside gas lamp, Sun Hao pointed at the shadow of the person and bared his teeth. Master Sun, we have tried our best. When we accepted the commission, you only said that the other party was a summoner in the Yang realm. You did not say that the person was a rune master. This was because you did not understand the other party's details and concealed important information. As a result, we made serious mistakes and omissions in our layout, and our team lost 3 warriors and 2 summoners. How is Mr. Sun going to settle this debt? The bounty hunter who was pointed at and scolded by Sun Hao had no expression on his face. He just looked at Sun Hao coldly, his eyes as sharp as needles, unruly, like a wild wolf. Sun Hao laughed angrily. It's good that I didn't ask you to refund the money I paid. You actually want to come and ask for compensation. Why, do I, Sun Hao, look like someone who has been taken advantage of? If you want compensation, Mendu no, and I'm telling you now, when you catch that person, I will pay you the remaining balance. Master Sun, you are forcing me. The bounty hunter said coldly. I force you, so what if I force you? You are incompetent and you still want me to pay the bill? Do you think I'm easy to bully? Sun Hao was aggressive. He took a step forward and poked the chest of the bounty hunter standing in front of him with a finger. He held his head high and said domineeringly, if you have the guts to touch a hair on my head, you are all just rewarding me. The people registered in the Golden Hunter Guild have names and surnames. If something happens to me, none of you can run away. My Sun family can make you walk around without food. Do you know what the iron guards at the police headquarters do? Do you think this is a place where people like you can be arrogant in the capital? If you don't have the ability, don't eat this bowl of rice. The bounty hunter who was poked in the chest by Sun Hao suppressed his anger, took a step back slightly, glanced at Sun Hao and the policeman next to Sun Hao with lifeless eyes, and said coldly, I hope Mr. Sun won't stop. Regret, don't do it all. Mr. Sun, the summoner you want to catch is not an ordinary person. He has a strange and ever-changing secret method, and is ruthless. Although he is a summoner in the One Yang realm, he is better than many summoners in the Two Yang realm. It's hard for everyone to deal with you. When that person comes to find you again, don't come to beg us again. Mr. Sun has done such a great job today. In the future, Mr. Sun can see if there are still bounty hunters in the capital. I'll work hard for you. Haha, do you think I'm scared? Sun Hao sneered. The 2 bounty hunters said nothing more and turned away, their figures disappearing into the darkness in the blink of an eye. Sun Hao walked a few steps in an extremely irritable place, trying to take out a cigarette, but found that the cigarettes in the sterling silver cigarette case on his body were empty. He immediately threw the exquisite sterling silver cigarette case to the ground. Sun Hao turned his head and stared at the policeman next to him with red eyes. Can you issue a wanted warrant? The policeman avoided Sun Hao's gaze and said cautiously, Ahem, this, we don't know his name yet, and there is no evidence of crime for that person. The Bureau has never opened a case, and it was not assigned by the superiors. This, I'm afraid it's a little difficult to handle, there are a lot of processes. Didn't that man kill several bounty hunters just now? Isn't that a crime of murder? The actions of those bounty hunters in Shangjing City tonight were shady, and they did not report the crime. It would be fine if they took the initiative to report the crime, but in that case the Bureau would lock them up first, and those bounty hunters have never reported the crime. If you don't ask the police to solve the problem, they have their own set of rules. To issue a wanted warrant, you need the director's nod. If you want a wanted warrant, you might as well go to the deputy director. Sun Hao gasped and said manically, if you can't handle such a thing, what's the use of you? Get out. The policeman cursed in his heart, but he could only say goodbye and leave in the carriage next to him. Tonight's actions were really rubbish. He had to wipe Mr. Sun's butt, so he could only admit that he was unlucky. As soon as the carriage left, there was only Sun Hao's carriage on the roadside. Sir, let's go too. The two dog-legged bodyguards next to Sun Hao looked at the night around them and couldn't help but persuade him. At this time, it was already late at night. Except for the street lamps and them, the streets here were deserted, which made people feel a little bit hairy. The summoner Sun Hao was going to hunt down tonight had already escaped from Sun Hao twice. In the night market once, here again, and a person died just now, and those bounty hunters also lost the person. This place is only a few kilometers away from the incident, not too far, and the bodyguard's mentality is a bit drumming. Trash, that person has escaped without a trace a long time ago. How dare he show his face? And how did that person know that I am here? Look at how bad you are. Sun Hao cursed, but he still walked towards the carriage. After that, my heart was full of frustration and anger, and I was extremely irritable. At this time, Sun Hao just wanted to leave here, find a woman to vent to, and then go to his second uncle at dawn to find a solution. The trouble he caused tonight was not small, and it was no longer a matter of a world bead. If he didn't deal with that person completely and let that guy come to his door, there would be trouble. Sun Hao had been tough on his words just now, but after knowing that the person was a rune master, he still felt a little nervous in his heart. The rune master had too many tricks, and he couldn't help but feel a little nervous in his heart. Just when Sun Hao was about to board the carriage, a voice suddenly came from the darkness and penetrated into Sun Hao's ears. Who said I dare not show my head? As soon as they heard this voice, the expressions of Sun Hao and the bodyguards beside him changed drastically. Just as a few people were about to make a move, a faint yellow light suddenly rose under their feet, and several people found themselves trapped in place. Draw the ground as a prison. Sun Hao screamed in horror. Sun Hao is also a summoner. He knows very well what will happen if a summoner is trapped by this spell. The bodyguards next to Sun Hao and Sun Hao just thought at the moment of the movement, a black Xuanhuan the size of a wash basin emerged from under the carriage. I don't know when the Xuanhuan crawled over and hid under the carriage without anyone noticing. If a person is trapped by the magic of drawing the ground as a prison, loses the initiative, and at the same time allows a terrifying thing like Xuanhuan to get close, the result will be fatal. Xuanhuan opened his mouth, black water covered the ground, and the biting cold and hoarfrost erupted in the small area underneath the prison. In just an instant, several people in the dungeon turned into ice sculptures and were completely frozen. It was not until this time that the shadow of a big tree next to the street lamp not far away twisted in the darkness, and Xiaopingan walked out of the shadow. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 195. It is said that a skilled person is bold. Xiaopingan had been using illusions to hide under the shadow of a tree not far from Sun Hao, watching Sun Hao talking to those people. The bounty hunters who chased him, after losing their target, thought he was hiding. They didn't know that what they were chasing was just an illusion under the secret technique of playing with princes with beacon fire. Naturally, it was even less likely that those people would know when they returned here. Xiaopingan is here. When Xiaopingan came here and hid, his and Sun Hao's roles had been reversed. Before, Sun Hao was a hunter and he was the prey, but now he is the hunter and Sun Hao has become the prey. It was quiet on the dark street. When he saw Xiaopingan coming out of the shadows, Sun Hao was not dead yet. Although he was completely unable to move, his heart was undoubtedly desperate and fearful. Because Sun Hao could see that the expression on Xiaopingan's face was too calm, as if nothing had happened. It was this that made Sun Hao feel sincerely afraid. Sun Hao wanted to blink, speak, pray, and promise conditions, but unfortunately he could not do any of these. He could only stare and watch Xiaopingan walk in front of him. It's just because of a Xuanhuan boy's world bead that it became like this. It's really unimaginable. At that time, don't be so arrogant, don't be so natural and act like everyone should let you be bullied by you. If you add a little more money, I might sell you the Xuanhuan boy's world pearl. After all, I need money very much. If you can offer 1,000 gold coins at that time, I will be really moved. For me, this Xuanhuan Tong's world pearl is not indispensable at this moment. With money, I can also buy other boundary pearl. Xiaopingan spoke and shook his head slightly. Perhaps Mr. Sun, you are used to being arrogant. Your family is rich and powerful, and you have lost the ability to communicate normally with others. When encountering problems, you always try to take advantage of others. Bullying, you always want to use your relationship to make others surrender. You may enjoy the pleasure of bullying others. Unfortunately, you met me, and you can't buy me by force. You used the police to arrest me, and now you directly use the bounty hunter. Damn, I'm very curious now, how do you know where I live? Xiaopingan said, stretched out his hand and pressed it on Sun Hao's neck. Sun Hao, whose whole body was frozen, felt that his throat and head gradually warmed up. He could already speak, but other than speaking, he could do nothing. Can't do it? Sun Hao's teeth chattered and he said in a trembling voice, don't kill me. Answer my question, how do you know where I live? This question is what Xiaopingan is most concerned about. If he doesn't understand how Sun Hao found him, Xiaopingan will not feel at ease when sleeping. He might have to escape overnight. Beijing. You promise? Sun Hao still wanted to spend time with Xiaopingan. Before he said this, Xiaopingan's other hand had already touched his wrist that was as frozen as ice and gently use force and click. Xiaopingan suddenly had a frozen palm on his hand. Xiaopingan put the broken palm in front of Sun Hao and let Sun Hao look at it. Then he waved his hand and removed the frozen palm. He threw his palm into the river next to him. If you keep talking nonsense, you can watch me break your body into pieces and throw it into the river. Sun Hao watched helplessly as Xiaopingan broke off the palm of his left hand from his wrist like corn. Although his whole body was frozen, he could not feel the pain, but he could feel the fear. I said. Although it was impossible to urinate, Sun Ben was still frightened by Xiaopingan and quickly told the answer, I spent 1,000 gold coins to find someone who knows the art of Zhugua. Man, I divined your location. Xiaopingan asked a few more questions and details, and Sun Hao told the whole story. Xiaopingan was finally sure that Sun Hao was not lying, which made Xiaopingan feel calm. When you are reincarnated in the next life, remember what I say to you. If you walk too much at night, you will eventually encounter ghosts. As a human being, don't always try to bully others. There are some people you can't bully, so just take your own life to do so. You said you wouldn't kill me. I never said that anyone who wants my life will die. In infinite horror, Sun Hao watched helplessly as Xiaopingan's two hands stretched out, touched his head, and then twisted it so hard, like twisting a ripe melon on a vine. Crack. A crunching sound. Sun Hao's neck was broken, and his head was twisted 180 degrees by Xiaopingan. Looking at his own back, the breath of life in his eyes disappeared instantly. The moment the breath of life disappeared from Sun Hao's eyes, a faint golden light emerged from the center of Sun Hao's eyebrows like a firefly, and then the golden light exploded in front of Xiaopingan. That bit of golden light was like an invisible bag being opened, and then the contents of the bag being poured out. Loud. Suddenly, there were a lot of things on the ground beside Xiaopingan's feet, including several large and small boxes, a wallet, some bottles and jars of things, a lot of shining gold coins, and a few keys. As well as several pistols, rifles, a lot of bullets, food. This feels like exploding a monster while playing a game. But Sun Hao is not a monster. The faint golden light that emerges from the center of Sun Hao's eyebrows is the projection of the space equipment integrated with Sun Hao's secret mandala. When Sun Hao dies, his secret mandala collapses, and the secret mandala collapses. The contents of the space equipment will be exploded. Not to mention anything else, the gold coins exploded from Sun Hao's space equipment were piled on the ground, dazzling the eyes. At a glance, there were no less than 5 or 6,000. Damn it, it's happening. Xiaopingan's eyes twitched. He really didn't expect that killing this second-generation ancestor would actually explode everything in his space equipment. Looking at the things on the ground, especially the gold coins, Xiaopingan's eyes shone. He couldn't be polite. With a wave of his hand, he moved everything on the ground to his own space warehouse. Sun Hao revealed too many things. Except for the gold coins, Xiaopingan had no time to take a closer look at the other things, so he had to put them away first and wait for time to settle down and slowly count them. After collecting Sun Hao's things, Xiaopingan followed suit. With a few clicks, the necks of the 2 dog-legged bodyguards beside Sun Hao were also broken. After killing these people in the blink of an eye, Xiaopingan took out an iron chain from his space warehouse, tied these people together with the iron chain, walked to the river, and threw them into the river. Not long after arriving in Shangjing City, this was the second time Xiaopingan asked the river god here to collect garbage in Shangjing City. After doing this, the road by the river was empty and without a soul. Only a few street lights were still on. The carriage and the horse pulling the carriage were still waiting for people to get on the carriage under the street lights. Xiaopingan walked to the carriage and patted the horse pulling the carriage. The horse stepped forward and kicked the empty four-wheeled carriage away from here. There was only the crisp sound of horse hooves on the road. Echoed. The next second, Xiaopingan disappeared by the river. The night is getting dark. It was as if nothing had happened on the road by the river. Not long after leaving here, Xiaopingan found a place to take inventory of Sun Hao's things. Soon, Xiaopingan found a strange object among the things Sun Hao had revealed. It was a strange transparent mask as thin as cicada wings. Sun Hao solemnly placed it in a delicate sterling silver box over 1 foot in size and inlaid with gems. In the box, a human face was made of soft velvet. The model, with the mask just placed on it, looks extremely precious. There was no text in the box explaining what the mask was for. Xiaopingan took the mask out of the box, held it in his hand and observed it carefully. He found that the mask should be harmless to people, and then he tried to put the mask on his face. Unexpectedly, as soon as the mask came into contact with Xiaopingan's nose, it seemed to be activated, and it immediately sucked on Xiaopingan's face, just like the skin on Xiaopingan's face. Xiaopingan soon discovered that after the mask was sucked on his face, it could actually change into various faces according to his wishes. Damn it, what is this mask? It's awesome. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 196. Sir, Are you satisfied with this hairstyle? The handsome barber boy stood behind Xiaopingan, used a comb to repart Xiaopingan's hair, looked at Xiaopingan in the mirror, and praised, according to your wishes at my request, I got a short haircut. Don't tell me, I look quite energetic. Xiaopingan looked at himself in the mirror and felt a little strange. The face in the mirror is in his mid-20s, unremarkable, and not as handsome as the guy with the haircut behind him. He is a face that is difficult to remember after just one glance on the street and is thrown into a crowd. The whole face. He doesn't have any distinctive features. If he had to find one feature, it would be that the short hair that matches his face looks very energetic. At this time, with a different face and hairstyle, even if Yan Duo stood in front of Xiaopingan, Yan Duo might not recognize Xiaopingan. Yes, that's enough. I'm very satisfied. Okay, then I'll wash your hair. The service at the barber shop was very attentive. After washing his hair, drying it and changing his clothes, Xiaopingan walked out of the shop refreshed. The sun was shining brightly on the street outside, and it had just reached noon. The street was extremely busy with people coming and going. Four-wheeled carriages and small rail trains were shuttling on the street. The sound of whistles and the sound of bells on the carriages were heard one after another. Two policemen on patrol were chatting and patrolling from Xiaopingan. As he passed by, he just glanced at Xiaopingan casually and didn't look twice. It had just been one morning, and the Sun family probably hadn't discovered Sun Hao's disappearance yet, and Xiaopingan had already completely changed his appearance in Shangjing City. Xiaopingan glanced at the Dewan Guild Hall, which was more than 100 meters away. Outside the Guild Hall, Tang Long had just got on the carriage and was sitting in front of the carriage next to the driver, like a bodyguard. The carriage had just left the Guild Hall, and the person sitting on the carriage was that elder of the Tang family. When I was getting a haircut in the shop just now, the mirror in the shop was facing the door of the Dewan Guild Hall in the distance. From the reflection of the mirror, Xiaopingan saw the elder of the Tang family coming out of the club and getting in the car. It seems that the elder of the Tang family will stay in Shangjing for a while, but I don't know what the elder of Tang is doing in Shangjing. Xiaopingan didn't dare to look more. He just glanced at it. Otherwise, others would notice him, so he quickly looked away. He didn't even dare to use his remote viewing ability to follow him. Who knew what the elder from the Tang family sitting in the car would do? He won't feel anything. The perception ability of such a master is too terrifying. Xiaopingan doesn't want to alert the snake. Speaking of things like stalking, Xiaopingan thought of the Xuanhuan boy's boundary bead that was still in his space warehouse. He heard that the summoned Xuanhuan boy was ever-changing and elusive, just like little ghosts and earthworms. Like Xing Sun, he is the most powerful scout and tracking tool. Unless he is a strong person above the Seven Sun Realm, no summoner below the Seven Sun Realm will be able to find traces of Xuanhuan boy. If he could fuse the world bead, summon the Xuanhuan boy, and use the Xuanhuan boy to stare at the elder of the Tang family, the elder of the Tang family would definitely not be able to find anything. However, if you want to fuse the world beads, you must first find a place to stay. You can't just start fusion on the street or in a random hotel. It is too dangerous to fuse the world beads in these crowded places. You definitely can't go back to the apartment. The new place you find must be safe enough. At least it can't be like that apartment. Any cat or dog would dare to find a bunch of bounty hunters and police to surround the apartment if they want to come. Making dumplings for yourself is too dangerous. I want to find a place that is quiet, where I cannot be disturbed while practicing the fusion of world beads. Even if there are rubbish like Sun Hao, I don't dare to easily ask the police and bounty hunters to cause trouble again. Xiaopingan was walking on the street while thinking about where to stay. Before, when he was looking for a place to stay in Shangjing City, his main consideration was cheapness, but now he can put this problem behind him. That trash Sun Hao is like a boy giving away money. Last night, Xiaoping counted the things in the space equipment of that guy Sun Hao. In addition to the 5 or 6,000 gold coins, there are almost more than 3,000 gold tickets. Now Xiaoping is already a man with a net worth of over 10,000. With almost 10,000 gold coins on his body, he can be regarded as a little rich person with a little wealth in Shangjing City. Although this money can't buy a very good mansion or compound in Shangjing City, it is common for those top-notch mansions and properties in the world to cost 180,000 gold coins, and mansions worth hundreds of thousands of gold coins are not that rare. But if you take out a little of this money and rent a nice house to settle down, it will not work. It's still okay. In addition to renting a house, this money can also buy a lot of world beads, which can quickly improve one's strength in a short period of time. Xiaoping has already thought about how to use the money. As for where to live, suddenly, an idea flashed in Xiaoping's head, and he thought of a place called Pingshan. The main camp of the Judgment Army is located in Pingshan, north of Shangjing City. At the foot of Pingshan Mountain, close to the main camp of the Judgment Army, there are many other courtyards. It is the oldest high-end residential area in Shangjing City. Those who can live around the foot of Pingshan Mountain are either rich or noble, except for those rich people. In addition, at the foot of Pingshan Mountain is the embassy area of many countries in the capital of Dashang, as well as several important government offices of Dashang. The security there is absolutely first-rate. If he had lived at the foot of Naping Mountain near the Judgment Army's camp before, and Sun Hao had given him 10 courages, he wouldn't have dared to just find a bunch of people to block the road and encircle him. Do those bounty hunters and policemen dare to cause trouble under the eyes of the adjudication army? Absolutely not. I am a member of the Shadow Guard of the Judgment Army. If there is an emergency, I can still find the organization and support nearby. Seeing a high-end clothing and accessories store on the street, Xiaoping walked directly to the store. A few minutes later, Xiaoping walked out of the store again. He looked different again. Xiaoping was wearing a double-breasted black tapestry robe and crisp black trousers. Under the robe was a purple silk vest and a white shirt. A length of silver pocket watch chain was exposed from the lining of the robe, and around the waist was a custom-made gold lion head and white jade buckle rhinoceros leather belt. Wearing this outfit worth more than 5 gold coins, it feels elegant. Let people know that he is a rich person at a glance. Xiaoping directly called a carriage on the street and asked the carriage to go directly to Pingshan. In the wealthy areas at the foot of Pingshan, there are also yaxing agencies that sell and rent houses. More than an hour later, Xiaoping stopped the carriage at the entrance of a high-end dental shop. Xiaoping, who was wearing several gold coins, got out of the carriage. As soon as he entered the dental shop, someone immediately greeted him enthusiastically. Welcoming. In the world of rich people, everything can be done smoothly, and the people around them are full of kindness, patience, and thoughtfulness. Xiaoping just stated his request, and soon, the people in Yaxing came up with a lot of prepared houses and floor plan information for Xiaoping to choose. Xiaoping looked through the information provided by Yaxing and selected a house from it. The house is a small courtyard, with a single door and a high wall, with green tiles and high walls. It has a bit of the temperament of Huizhu architecture. The small courtyard is in an alley, with mansions and courtyards on both sides. How can I rent this house? The man immediately started talking. Ah, sir, you are so discerning. The owner of this courtyard was an official in the protocol department of the central government. He retired and returned to his hometown. He just moved out last month, so I kept this house and plan to use it when my children and grandchildren come to study in the capital. The courtyard is close to Pingshan, which is warm in winter and cool in summer. It is surrounded by several embassies. Although the house is not large, it is connected to the courtyard. There is less than an acre of land, but this small courtyard has 2 floors, as well as a basement. The furniture and other items are already made, making it suitable for a decent person like you. Our dental office sends people to clean the house every few days. The house is clean and ready to move in at any time, and the price is not expensive, only 130 gold coins per year, and the deposit is 200 gold coins. 130 gold coins a year is indeed not expensive for Xiaoping'an now. Even if he lives here for 10 years, it will be less than 2,000 gold coins. But for ordinary people, this is a sky-high price. Without spending any more effort, after drinking 2 cups of tea in Yahang and chatting for a few words, Xiaoping'an rented the courtyard directly after Yahang lowered the annual rent by 6 gold coins. Thinking of the world pearl to be fused, Xiaoping'an gave himself a pseudonym, also called Yang Cheng. Someone from Yahang helped pack the house and prepare to buy things for moving in. In the evening, Xiaoping'an got the key and settled in the yard again. What satisfied Xiaoping'an the most was that the basement in this courtyard was actually the summoner's training room. There was a secret door in the basement that could be locked from the inside, making it difficult for outsiders to get in. As soon as the Yaxing people left, Xiaoping'an came to the basement, sat cross-legged on the warm bed for cultivation, took out the world bead that could summon Xuanhuan boy, and started to fuse. At the same time, after disappearing for a day, the people of the Sun family finally discovered that the son of the Sun family, Sun Hao, and the bodyguards around Sun Hao were missing. The Sun family sent people to search, but only found Sun Hao's carriage. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 197. Golden Summoner. Sir, Daesu City is ahead. I saw a lot of people at the official post in front of me. Flags were waving. It seemed that they were officials from Daesu City coming to greet the master. The rolling carriage was driving on the official road. Zheng Ti, who was driving the carriage in front, opened the curtain in front of the carriage and said to Xiaoping'an in the carriage, "I know, just stop at the official post in front." Xiaoping'an, who was sitting in the carriage, looked at Zheng Ti and ordered. Zheng Ti, who was driving the bus, nodded and continued driving. Xiaoping'an looked at Han Yu's on criticism of officials in his hand with great interest. This Han Yu's article is indeed excellent. Even if he wrote this article to scold himself, his Lun on criticism is also impeccably written. And Lun on criticism contains extensive quotations and quotations from the Book of Changes. When he came to Shangzhou, Han Yu picked up his words, scolded himself again and again, and left himself speechless. Seeing Xiaoping'an reading Han Yu's article, Shui Yu, who was also sitting in the carriage, couldn't help but said, "Then Han Yu wrote on criticism of officials to ridicule the teacher for taking the position of admonishing the doctor." This time the traitor Pei Yanling framed Master Lu, and everyone in the court knew that Master Lu was unjust, but only the teacher dared to stand up and argue for Master Lu, and denounced the traitor. I wonder where Han Yu's face will go this time put. Xiaoping'an smiled and said, "Shui Yu, you are too straightforward and have a bad temper. No one can be faulted by a sage. I have been silent for many years when I served as an admonishment doctor. Han Yu couldn't stand it. He wrote articles and scolded me. The sentences are normal, Han Yu's article is excellent, you should study more. Why didn't the teacher refute Han Yu in the first place? It's just a matter of doing something and not doing anything. You have to remember that an admonishment officer is like a sword. If you meet someone who doesn't like to sharpen the sword will be used more often and the sword will not be sharp. How can you cut through the thorns at the critical moment? I, in the position of an admonishing doctor, risking one's life and admonishing this time can prevent His Majesty from doing stupid things, preventing Lu Ji and others from being harmed by Pei Yanling, and preventing His Majesty from becoming a foolish king who kills loyal ministers in vain. Teacher, who is the sword sharpener? Taizong liked to sharpen his sword, and Wei Zheng showed his sharpness, Xiaoping'an said. Shui Yu seemed to have realized something, but still looked angry, Everyone in the world knows that Pei Yanling is a treacherous woman who is flattering, incompetent, and good at dealing with people. Back then, the traitorous prime minister was serving as an envoy, but he only made some books and accounts to fool his majesty. The imperial treasury has not increased at all, but your majesty thinks that he is good at managing money and has been promoted one after another. The traitor is the one who deserves to be killed and demoted. This time, the teacher is desperately writing a letter to impeach the traitor. Isn't it that your majesty still doesn't wake up? Xia Ping'an looked at Xuanhuan, but he was thinking in his heart that Xuanhuan's temper was really upright. If he hadn't kept him by his side to teach him all the time, Xuanhuan would have been convicted of his words and relegated to the countryside. I don't know if I can change Xuanhuan's fate, and the divine power he will get after the successful fusion of the world beads will increase. In addition to the student Xuanhuan, Zheng Ti, who is currently driving as his servant, is actually dead long ago according to historical records. What happened to Zheng Ti should be the most frustrating thing in Yang Qing's life. Zheng Ti was originally a loyal and upright person. Because he had no money to bury his father, Yang Cheng still lived in seclusion in Xiaoyang Mountain. After helping him bury his father, Zheng Ti was willing to do so. He worked as a slave and served Yang Qing's right and left, but Yang Cheng was loyal and unwilling to repay his kindness. He only wanted to treat Zheng Ti as a student. He also taught Zheng Ti to read and learn the Book of Songs and Guofeng. But that Zheng Ti is indeed not the material for reading. In the end, I felt that I was sorry for Yang Qing's teachings and could not study further. I was so ashamed that I actually hanged myself. The death of Zheng Ti was also the most annoying thing in Yang Chengjun's life. When Zheng Ti died, Yang Chengjun took off his clothes to apologize for his sins in Zheng Ti's mourning hall, and asked his servants to whip him with thorns to atone for his sins. After fusing this world bead this time, Xia Ping'an will naturally not let the tragedy of the past happen again. After helping Zheng Ti bury his father in Xiaoyang Mountain, Xia Ping'an accepted Zheng Ti and asked Zheng Ti to follow him as a servant. Not studying, only doing things, Zheng Ti really tried his best and is still active and vigorous until now. There are actually two hardest parts of integrating this world pearl. One is being recruited by the imperial court in Yangcheng to become an admonishment official, and knowing when to risk one's life to speak out and get the chance to be demoted to Days Hu. The second is being demoted. After arriving in Days Hu, he knew what to do to relieve the sufferings of the people in Days Hu. The Qianhuan boy summoned by this world bead should be related to the dwarfs that the people of Days Hu paid tribute to the court. Soon, the carriage arrived at the official post in front. More than 100 people, including Days Hu city officials and flag bearers, gathered here to welcome the arrival of the new governor. When Xia Ping'an got off the carriage, he took out his seal and showed his identity. The officials in Days Hu city greeted Xia Ping'an and prepared to return to Days Hu city by clearing the way. Sitting in the carriage, Xia Ping'an was already thinking about where to start after arriving in Days Hu. The matter of stopping tribute was not a trivial matter and involved the interests of all aspects. His officials and the observers above him may all be involved. From the Sui dynasty since Emperor Yangdi, Days Hu has been paying tribute to dwarfs. All the dwarf figurines of the Tang dynasty came from Days Hu. In the words of later generations, dwarfs have formed an industrial chain in Days Hu. Many people have been promoted and made rich by paying tribute to dwarfs. I came here this time to stop many people from getting promoted and making money. The officials and honor guards who greeted Xia Ping'an walked on the official road with majesty, making the people along the way look at them with suspicion. In less than an hour, Xia Ping'an's carriage followed the officials and arrived at the east gate of Days Hu city. After walking for such a long time, with the scorching sun above our heads, the flag players were all wilted, but they still managed to keep their spirits up. Just as the motorcade was about to enter the city, suddenly, a woman rushed out from the city gate, knelt down in front of the honor guard, and cried loudly, "The women of the people have been wronged, please forgive the women of the people, make the decision. Seeing this happening just after the newly arrived governor entered the city, the officials who greeted Xiaopingyan suddenly turned green in the face. Where are you, this bold and cunning woman? Drag her away. An official on horseback shouted coldly and was about to order the woman blocking the road to be dragged away from the city gate. Wait a minute. The curtain of the carriage was opened. Xiaopingyan had already got off the carriage, passed directly past the officials and flag bearers, came to the place where the wronged woman was kneeling, and took a look at the woman. The woman kneeling on the ground was in her 20s, wearing a coarse linen skirt, with rough hands and face, and her face was dusty. At first glance, she must be a peasant woman from the countryside near Dazhu city. She must have been waiting here for a long time. I am the newly appointed governor of Dazhu, Yang Cheng, and the entire Dazhu is under my rule. Xiaopingyan glanced at the people watching the excitement around him, said loudly, and then reached out to help the woman. Why are you being wronged and why are you blocking the road? You can talk about it after you get up. He, a commoner woman, asks you to make the decision for me. The woman who was kneeling on the ground did not get up at all. Instead, she kowtowed and cried loudly. The woman's forehead was knocked on the dusty ground, and her forehead was swollen. It's green and covered in dust. My child has just turned 1 year old and has been snatched away. Please help me get my child back. I don't want to live without my child. According to the provisions of my Tang Code, those who plunder people and sell them into slaves will be hanged, those who are slaves will be exiled for 3,000 miles. Those who are wives, concubines, and descendants will be exiled for 3 years. Who dares to rob children in our days? Who? If you tell me, I will definitely make the decision for you. I want to see who in the city is so bold. Xiaopingyan probably knew who did it, but he still told Tang Lu loudly. His righteous words made the surrounding people a little commotion. The civilian woman's child was snatched away by that man and a few policemen. The civilian woman raised her head and pointed at one of the officials standing behind Xiaopingyan. Xiaopingyan turned his head and looked at the officials in Dazhu city behind him. There are many officials who came to greet him today. They are all people from the governor's office of Dazhu. There are Bijia, Chinchi, and Sima from the governor's office, who record affairs and participate in the military. There are also Si Gong, Sikang, Sihu, Sibing, etc. There are officials from the 6 CAO such as Judiciary and Si Shi, as well as some minor officials. The person pointed by the peasant woman was none other than the Sihu of the 6 CAO Zhongzhong of the governor's mansion. The position of Sihu was to count people's household registration. In Xiaopingyan's eyes, this was a small official as sesame as mung beans, but in the eyes of ordinary people, this kind of small official is also a great big shot. The Sihu of Dazhu city is a man who looks like a pig. He is in his 30s, with bubbles in his eyes, black eye bags, and a fat head. He is sweating profusely and panting after walking this distance. He was in Guanyi just now. At the meeting, the Sihu introduced himself. Xiaopingyan still remembered this guy. His name was Wang Qi. Seeing the civilian woman pointing at him and the governor looking over, the Sihu Wang Qi's expression changed. He was so frightened that he broke out in cold sweat. He quickly defended, "Please tell me, sir, I have never kidnapped children." "Then why did she correct you?" Xiaopingyan asked calmly. "Are you saying that she falsely accused you?" "If she falsely accused you, I can make the decision for you and clear your name and punish her. It's you. Just 10 days ago, you came to my house with a few policemen and snatched away my child. You also injured me with an iron ruler and pushed me to the ground. You turned into ashes and I recognize it, and all the neighbors around my home can testify." The civilian woman looked at the clerk, gritted her teeth, wiped her tears, and directly in front of everyone, she tore off her clothes, revealing a black streak on her shoulder. "Sir, Please see, this is the mark left by that person who hit me with an iron ruler. My husband died of illness when the child was just 1 month old. Now they are here to snatch my child again. God, what am I doing? What evil have you done? Why do you do this to me? The woman was crying on the ground. Her voice was so sad that everyone around her looked at her with sympathy, and many of the women who were watching almost cried. Moreover, with such a commotion, more and more people were watching at the city gate. In the blink of an eye, there were people on the 3rd floor and the 3rd floor around. This. There was sweat on the forehead of the clerk, and he looked at his colleagues around him for help, especially the Sakang official, but the Sakang official looked away, not wanting to take this trouble, and saw Xiaopinggan's eyes began to turn cold, and Sihu Wangqi could only hesitate and say, Master Governor, can you please go back to the official office and explain to your excellency? Where we are in the Tang dynasty, under the land of the emperor, heaven, and empress, are all places of reason. The place where this palace is located is the court. If you have reasons, why go to the Yamen to talk about it? Xiaopinggan said loudly, with murderous intent and righteous words. The countless people watching around were shocked. If you have anything to say, you can say it now. In front of countless people in Daesu City in the city, you can explain it clearly to me now. If you don't explain it clearly, I will take your head for the crime of robbery. Hearing what Xiaopinggan said, the Sihu King Qi gritted his teeth, lowered his head and defended, Sir, I didn't rob anyone. I was preparing tributes for His Majesty. They actually carried out the emperor and the tributes. Xiaopinggan had been staring at Wang Qi's face. Seeing Wang Qi's face, Xiaopinggan sneered in his heart. He actually wanted to use the emperor and tributes to pressure me. In front of so many people, you didn't mention the emperor and tributes. Well, if you say it now, you are seeking death. You probably don't know how you passed the Jinshi exam. When did the Tang dynasty offer children and infants as tribute? I came from Chang'an just now. Why didn't I know? Xiaopinggan asked. This, children and infants cannot be used as tributes, but dwarf puppets can be. Your Excellency, you should have seen those dwarf puppets in Chang'an City. Those dwarf puppets were trained by those children. He is the earth offering of our Daesu City. This Sihu Wangqi actually had a needle hidden in his clothes and wanted to turn against him. Oh, really? Xiaopinggan smiled. So, you admitted that you had robbed this civilian woman's child. Sir, this is not robbing, but collecting soil as tribute, Sihu Wangqi continued to defend. Xiaopinggan asked the woman who complained, when he took away your child, did he give you money or silk? The woman shook her head, no, these people always snatch children directly. When Xiaopinggan heard this, his face instantly turned cold, and he pointed directly at Sihu Wangqi, come here, capture this robbing traitor for me. The officials and servants who greeted Xiaopinggan looked at each other. For a moment, they looked at each other and did not move. Xiaopinggan looked at Daesu City's secretary joining army and the Yamen service team leader. Disobeying the governor's order is tantamount to treason. Why, in full view of the people of Daesu City, you too are going to be like him, do you want to rebel? The recorder of the governor's office was responsible for supervising the 6th CAO when he joined the army, while the leader of the guard team took orders directly from the governor. When they heard Xiaopinggan mention the crime of treason, the two officials were agitated, and without saying a word, they quickly gave orders to their guards. And pushed the Sihu King Qi to the ground. Sir, I don't accept it. You can't take me. I'm collecting tributes for the court. I didn't commit a crime. I didn't commit a crime. Sihu Wangqi was pushed to his knees on the ground, still shouting. According to the imperial decree, all counties' contributions shall be based on what the local land produces, and the price shall be silk. The tribute items shall not exceed 50 pieces, and the official items shall be used to fill the market. The tribute shall be minimal, and the items shall be easily provided. The Holy Dynasty, the regular system is here. In addition to this, it also discounts rents and taxes, not to mention military conquests. You said that people were robbed in order to pay tribute. Then let me ask you, where did the compensation given by the court to those who paid tribute go? Why was it not given to that woman? Dare to embezzle the land offered as compensation to His Majesty, it is also a capital offense. Xuanhuan's face suddenly changed drastically. This. Xuanhuan couldn't explain, because all the so-called compensation to the people had been swallowed up. How could it be distributed, and embezzling so much court land as compensation was also a capital crime? You keep saying that you rob children to pay tribute, but the imperial court stipulates that the price of land offerings cannot exceed 50 pieces. It also stipulates that the government must compensate the property losses of those who pay tribute. You rob children without discounting the rent and taxes. Do not pay silk and property. How is this different from thieves who plunder people? You keep saying that this is for His Majesty and the court, but in fact you are doing this beastly thing under the banner of His Majesty, deceiving the superiors and concealing the truth, and making His Majesty he is at odds with the imperial court and the people of Daeshu, causing the people of Daeshu to be separated from their flesh and blood, and also slandering the reputation of your Majesty and the imperial court. He deserves to be punished for his crime. Xiaopingan pointed at Xuanhuan. As a court official, if you know the law and break the law, your crime will be increased to 1 level. Come on, kill this beast here with a stick immediately, and give an explanation to the people of Daeshu. The officers who were holding Xuanhuan hesitated for a moment, but they still pushed Wang Qi to the ground and beat him with sticks, making Xuanhuan scream loudly. At the beginning, the guards did not dare to use too much force and kept their hands tied. Shuiyu, this Wang Qi has done many evil things. If there are any accomplices in the governor's office, check it out for me when you get back, Xiaopingan said directly to Shuiyu, who was next to him. Yes, sir, Shuiyu replied from the side. Upon hearing this, the expressions of some of the surrounding officials changed again, and the strength of those officers' hands suddenly exploded, and they began to beat him with all their strength. Wang Qi, who was screaming loudly just now, only had the strength to hum after just a few screams. Later, Wang Qi didn't even have the strength to hum, and was completely silent. In front of all the people in Daeshu City, Xiaopingan killed the evil officials at the city gate as soon as he arrived in Daeshu City, shocking all the officials in the governor's yamen. When Wang Qi was being beaten, the people around him spread the word, and more people gathered around to watch the fun. In just the blink of an eye, thousands of people gathered at the gate of Daeshu City. After being beaten hundreds of times, Wang Qi's back was bruised, his mouth and nose were bleeding, and he no longer made any sound, just like a piece of rotten meat. The officer who was beating the man stopped, and the secretary of the governor's office came forward to check, and then reported to Xiaopingan tremblingly, "Your Majesty, Wang Qi has been killed with a stick. Drag the person down." Xiaopingan ordered. Qingtian is coming, Master Qingtian is coming." When the people around him saw this scene, an old man exclaimed in excitement, "Lord Governor, please make the decision for us." Countless people began to shout, "Sir, my child was also captured by them." Another person among the crowd of onlookers knelt down, "Please save my poor child. Sir, save us Daeshu people. We Daeshu people are suffering too much." More and more Daeshu people knelt down at the city gate and burst into tears. Golden Summoner. Author, Zyu. Chapter 198. The officials and attendants in the governor's mansion who came to greet Xiaopingan did not expect that Xiaopingan would dare to kill people as soon as he arrived in Daeshu, and he would kill people with sticks in public. Of course, what they did not expect was that in such a moment, at the gate of the city, With so many people gathered, Xiaoping'an would make the people of Dazhu City so excited. The dark crowd was kneeling on the ground, asking Xiaoping'an to make the decision for them. The people of Dazhu have been suffering from harsh governance for a long time, and finally they have an official who dares to make decisions for the people. Everyone is excited. Everyone, get up. Xiaoping'an looked at the crowd of people kneeling on the ground around him, walked directly to the carriage, and stood on the carriage hill so that everyone could see him and hear him speak. I am Yang Cheng. Since I am the governor of Dazhu, I will never allow anyone in Dazhu to harm the people of Dazhu. If you have any grievances, you can tell me and I will make the decision for you. Hearing what Xiaoping'an said, the people surrounding the city gate became more and more restless. A white-haired old man stood up tremblingly, cupped his hands towards Xiaoping'an, and said, Sir, the most painful thing for us Dazhu people is the matter of paying tribute to the court. From Emperor Yang of Sui to today, in the past 100 years or so, countless people in our Dazhu have lost their families, their wives, and their children. Their relatives, friends, and ancestors have not experienced this kind of thing. In the homes of ordinary people, everyone lives in fear. If any family has a child, they don't dare to let anyone know, or they can only quietly flee to other places, just for fear that the child will be captured by the government and turned into a dwarf to pay tribute. For the imperial court, the officials in the Yamen were like wolves and tigers. Every year, they went to various places in Dazhu to check household records. When they saw the children of poor families, they were taken away directly in the name of the government. Anyone who dared to stop them would be working with the imperial court. Enemies, disrespectful to the emperor. Every year in our Dazhu, there are at least a dozen or dozens of families, and as many as hundreds of families are separated from their flesh and blood. This is the worst thing in the world. Please make the decision for the people of our Dazhu. Last year, the Qian family next door to ours, who made tofu, was kidnapped because their children were taken away. The Qian family's mother-in-law committed suicide by throwing herself into a well. The men in the Qian family went crazy. It was so tragic. Someone nearby said. That is, all the pregnant people in our village ran to the mountains and built wooden huts to live in the mountains, and they did not dare to return to the village. That woman in Fangyuan Alley became crazy after her child was taken away. She would breastfeed anyone she saw. The surrounding Dazhu people began to talk. How many families do this every year? Xiaoping'an's heart trembled slightly. Although he already knew that the people of Dazhu were living in misery and that their children would be captured by the government and trained as dwarfs to pay tribute to the court, Xiaoping'an did not expect that the people of Dazhu would be so miserable and so many families would suffer every year. This is the true state of the people of Dazhu who live in the so-called prosperity of the Tang dynasty. For these people in Dazhu city, they cannot feel the prosperity of the Tang dynasty. Over the past 100 years, the greatest hope of the people in Dazhu is that their children will not be snatched away and turned into dwarfs. However, such human tragedies happened again and again in Dazhu, and it became something that the officials in Dazhu tacitly condoned. Children from poor families will be taken away by people from the government. What about the children from rich families? Xiaoping'an asked directly. Rich families are also very frightened. When officials come to check the household registration, they can only use gold and silver to prepare food and drink. Only in this way can the children at home be saved from disaster. Poor families have no money to take care of them, so they can only do whatever they want. Let the government take the child away, the old man replied. Where did those people take the children of Dazhu people? Xiaoping'an asked. Those children who were taken away are at Changjiun Villa outside the city. Are all the children there? Yes, all the children are there. They train the robbed children into dwarfs at Changjiun Villa. Where is Changjiun Villa? Sir, Changjiun Villa is on Changjiun Mountain 5 miles away from here. Xiaoping'an looked around and said loudly, Okay, Today I am coming to Daesu for the first time, so I will go to Xuanhuan Villa to see what kind of dragon and tiger's den Xuanhuan Villa is. It dares to devour the flesh and blood of countless people in our Daesu every year. Yamen servants, please lead the way, let's go to Xuanhuan Villa to have a look. Sir, we know where Xuanhuan Villa is, and we will show you the way. The people around him jumped into excitement. Xiaoping'an ordered Zheng Ti and Shuiyu to bring the woman who blocked the road to complain into the carriage. He walked on foot and turned in the same direction with the people. He no longer returned to the yamen of the governor's mansion, but headed directly towards Xuanhuan Villa outside the city. Go. The officials who greeted Xiaoping'an at the governor's office saw the situation and could only follow Xiaoping'an to Xuanhuan Villa. The procession was huge, and the people in the procession were excited. The officials who followed Xiaoping'an all the way had a premonition that something big was going to happen in Daesu City today. Wherever the team passed, those Daesu people who saw the team knew that Xiaoping'an was going to Xuanhuan Villa, so they joined in one by one. Many people directly took hoes, sickles, sticks and other objects and followed Xiaoping'an. At Xuanhuan Villa, there were more and more people in the entire team. In the end, there were thousands of people, which was quite spectacular. After a journey of more than 5 miles, it was actually less than 3 kilometers. After walking for more than half an hour, Xuanhuan Villa appeared in front of Xiaoping'an. It was a manor covering an area of dozens of acres, with green trees, tall walls, and a large scale. The people of Xuanhuan Villa have already received the news. When Xiaoping'an and his people arrived outside Xuanhuan Villa in great force, there were already people on the road outside Xuanhuan Villa waiting for Xiaoping'an's arrival. A man in his 50s, wearing a rich silk dress and a military cap, and dozens of strong men armed with swords, guns, and sticks were guarding the intersection. Seeing so many people coming at once, the man's face changed slightly. The villagers behind the man were also a little commotion, but the man was still calm. He turned his head and glared hard, and the turbulent villagers calmed down. Down. The man stared intently at Xiaoping'an, who was leading everyone along. A smile suddenly appeared on his face, and he spoke preemptively. I heard that Mr. Yang went to Daesu today to take up his post. I wonder why Mr. Yang brought so many people to my Xuanhuan Villa. I was just trying to find a time to go to the governor's mansion to pay homage to you. The man said with a smile to Xiaoping'an, looking well behaved and sensible, but he was not so polite to the people who came here with Xiaoping'an. In the blink of an eye, the man played a face-changing game. With a stern face and cold eyes flashing, he scolded the common people unceremoniously and domineeringly. Why are you untouchables here? Don't you know that our Xuanhuan Villa is an important place in Daesu City? Is it the place responsible for paying tribute to the imperial court? His Majesty in Chang'an City is still waiting for the tribute from Xuanhuan Villa. Tribute is the most important thing in our Daesu City. It is an opportunity for our Daesu City to express our loyalty to the imperial court and His Majesty. It affects do you deserve the tribute from Daesu City? If you want to rebel, get out of here. If you dare to cause trouble, be careful that you untouchables will have your families destroyed, and no one can protect you. The man was as powerful as a wolf and a tiger. Many of the people who were following Xiaoping'an were frightened by the man and took a few steps back. They all looked at Xiaoping'an. Xiaoping'an squinted at the man. What the man just said to the people was actually meant for him and was a threat to him. Who are you? Xiaoping'an asked directly. As soon as the man turned his face, he looked at Xiaoping'an with a smile, and cupped his hands towards Xiaoping'an. Mr. Yang, I am Zhuang Chao, the owner of Xuanhuan Villa, a squire of Daesu City, and also a squire of Daesu City. As the head of this place, our banker has been rooted in this Daesu City for more than 10 generations, and has been loyal to the emperor and loved the people from generation to generation. Today, when you come to my place, I wonder if you are being deceived by villains. Our Xuanhuan villa has never done anything illegal or indisciplined thing. Oh, really? How did I hear that your Xuanhuan villa contains many kidnapped children from Daesu City? Xiaopingan asked. Zhuang Chao looked serious. What do you mean by this, sir? The children in our Xuanhuan villa are all tributes. They are to train the dwarf puppets in the city to represent Daesu as tribute to the imperial court. How can we call them hiding? Your Majesty is like this today. It is really chilling to slander our Xuanhuan villa. The last time the observer visited our Xuanhuan villa, he encouraged us and asked us to do our best to complete the important task of paying tribute assigned by the court. If we no longer cultivate and train those dwarfs, the drama figurines delayed the important event of paying tribute in Daesu City, and the imperial court and the observers blamed it on you. Can you bear this responsibility? What a eloquent person, he actually threatened me. Xiaopingan laughed loudly, his face turned cold. You may be as eloquent as you are, but the court's legal system cannot be reversed by you in just a few words. According to the court's laws, everything the county's contribution should be made from the produce of the land, and the price should be silk. The tribute should not exceed 50 pieces, and the official items should be filled in the market. The tribute should be minimal, and the items are easy to provide. The Holy Dynasty often made it. That's it. In addition to this, they also discounted the rent and taxes. Not to mention the imperial examination, the children in your Xuanhuan villa were all plundered. They are not considered tributes. Sihu Wangqi has already executed them. You don't dare to treat them as an official. Do you want to kill you? If the court and the observers want to blame, come here. I even risked my life to impeach Pei Yanling. How can I be afraid of your threats? You colluded with Wangqi to hide and plunder children. Your crime is extremely heinous and you deserve to die. Zhuang Chao's expression changed, and just as he was about to say something, Xiaopingan, with quick eyes and quick hands, grabbed the Tang Dao from Shui Yu's waist and slashed it out. Under the watchful eyes of a group of officials from the Daesu prefecture and thousands of people around him, Xiaopingan's sword slashed directly through Zhuang Chao's neck. Zhuang Chao's head, which was still filled with a hint of shock, suddenly it fell off his neck and rolled to the ground. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 199. Zhuang Chao was beheaded by Xiaopingan all the time. His eyes were still wide-eyed, as if he couldn't believe that the newly arrived Daesu governor actually dared to kill him. The blood on the neck of the headless body spurted out about a foot high. After shaking twice, it fell to the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust. The villagers in Xuanhuan villa who were armed with swords and clubs completely pissed themselves when they saw this scene. The officials in the governor's office were also frightened. They had thought that Xiaopingan was demoted to Daesu as an admonishing official and was just a civil servant. How could they have imagined that Xiaopingan was decisive in killing and not inferior to the generals? Before the governor's office returned, Xiaopingan had already killed 2 people on the way. This new governor dared to fight to the death with the prime minister in the court. It is said that the prince and the students of the Imperial Academy interceded with His Majesty and finally saved him from death. But when he got there, he was even more difficult to offend. With this method and courage, it is definitely not something that ordinary people can fool. A villager's hand shook, and the stick he was holding fell to the ground. His face turned pale, and he knelt on the ground. Don't kill me. Seeing that some villagers dropped the guy on their hands, the other villagers followed suit and quickly threw the guys on their hands on the ground and knelt down to beg for mercy. This governor even beheaded the owner of Xuanhuan villa. To kill little shrimps like them, just one sentence is enough. The chief culprit has been killed, and the threats will never be pursued. It is none of your business. Xiaopingan threw the bloody Tang Dao to Shui Yu, who was also stunned, and then said loudly to the people around him, "Lead the way for me, go to Zhuangzi to see where the robbed children are. All the officials from the governor's office will go in with me to rescue the robbed children. All the government officials will guard the entrances and exits of Changjiun Villa. No one can be released without my order. In and out." Hearing Xia Ping'an's words, the worried veterans in the governor's office suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. The governor said that the culprit has been killed and the threats will never be pursued, which means that he is not prepared to continue this matter in days who. The investigation was expanded to include them. If we really wanted to investigate, this matter involved too many things. The governor even took them in to rescue the robbed children. That was treating them as one of his own and giving them the opportunity to make meritorious deeds. Of course, if you follow the governor in to rescue the robbed children, then the basis for assassinating the adults today is enough to kill one person with a stick and one person with a sword. It means that everyone agrees that those children were privately plundered. In the future, we will discuss this issue. Above all officials in the governor's office must speak the same language, advance and retreat together, make meritorious deeds and bear responsibilities together. Anyone who dares not to go in with him may become the second Wang Qi. In this situation, the governor also considered asking all the government officials to guard the gate of Changjiun Villa to prevent those common people from entering. After arriving at the villa, he was incited to steal property, smash, loot and burn, which got out of hand. This kind of governor made all the officials in the governor's mansion respectful and fearful, and they no longer dared to think about it. Seeing Xia Ping'an walking towards the gate of Changjiun Villa with the villagers, the officials of the governor's mansion also rushed in, for fear of being left behind. The government officials of the governor's mansion also stood guard at the door of Changjiun Villa to maintain order, not letting those restless people enter together. "Where are those kidnapped children? Take me there," Xia Ping'an said directly as soon as he entered Zhuangzi. The servants in Zhuangzi saw a group of officials and servants from the governor's mansion rushing in with murderous intent. The armed villagers in the village were so frightened that their faces were as pale as quails, and no one dared to stop them. They all stood aside with their heads lowered. Zhuangzi was very big and had a certain aura of wealth. After being led around by a group of villagers, Xia Ping'an finally came to the backyard of Zhuangzi and saw the children who had been kidnapped. Even a hard-hearted person can't help but tremble when he sees the scene in the backyard of the village. It is recorded in the history books that the training of dwarfs in days who is to put snatched children in jars to restrict the growth and development of the children, so that the children grow into dwarfs and become artificially disabled. Xia Ping'an was a little skeptical when he read it in the history books before, but now he sees it, couldn't help but almost shed tears. This method of training dwarfs is simply cruel. Xia Ping'an saw 50 or 60 children, each of whom was packed in large and small tin cans. The tallest tin can was less than 3 feet high, and the smallest tin can was only over a foot high. Only the children's heads could be exposed from the tin cans, and all the children's hands and feet were curled up in the tin cans, like pickles being pickled, unable to move at all. There are people watching here, and those children who are put in iron cans and who dare to cry will have their mouth slapped with a board. In addition to the children in tin cans, there are also 20 or 30 dwarfs less than 1 meter tall, who are being trained like circus clowns to learn various fancy juggling skills and sword playing. Pill jumping, handstand, rope walking, giant beast dance, big bird trick, upper pole on the car, top pole, human-animal fight, 5 cases, 7 plates, fish and dragon spread, lion play, swallowing knives, spitting fire, etc. skill. The person in charge of training here was an old man. When the old man heard that Zhuang Ding said that Zhuang Chao had been beheaded by the new governor, he was so frightened that he knelt down. Those who were training the dwarfs also knelt down one by one. He kowtowed in front of Xia Ping'an, his face turned pale with fear. The dwarfs who were being trained were all at a loss and just stood aside hesitantly. "My lord Mingjian, it's really not just our business. I am here to listen to the owner's instructions and help the owner train the dwarf puppets to be presented to the court. We really don't know the rest. Xiaopingan took a deep breath. Get up first and release the children trapped in the tin cans. Yes, yes, yes. Those people quickly released the children trapped in the tin cans one by one. The children were trapped in small tin cans, and they pooped and peed in the cans. Many of the children's bodies had ulcers, and most of them had various skin diseases. In an iron can, snakes and insects were found along with the child. The child who was put in the iron can already had wounds from snake bites on his body. Why are there snakes and insects in the tin can? Xiaopingan asked the old man. Sir, this is our ancestral method of training people. If you don't obey, throw snakes and insects into the iron jar. The snakes and insects will bite but will not kill you. The old man's body trembled and he told Xiaoping and explained, other children will be obedient when they see things being thrown into the tin cans of disobedient children, and they will not feel uncomfortable being locked in the tin can. Throwing snakes and insects into tin cans is psychological training. It would be unacceptable for children to be locked in tin cans. But if those children find that there are no snakes and insects in their tin cans, they will feel very lucky and feel very good. Luck, little by little, develops the habit of obedience in people, and develops them into dwarfs both physically and psychologically. How long are these kids going to stay in the tin? When they are 16 years old and their bodies no longer grow, they no longer need to be kept in tin cans. Then they can be released to train in various acrobatic skills. Where do they usually sleep? Just sleep standing up in the tin can. It took more than 10 or 20 years for living and healthy children to be tortured into dwarfs and turned into tributes and specialties and sent to Chang'an City for the entertainment of the emperor and the wealthy families. This tragic thing happened in the Datang dynasty, the ugliest scene in the Golden Age, and it has lasted for hundreds of years. It was a dispensable pleasure for the emperors in Chang'an City after dinner. When it arrived in Daesu City, it became a big mountain weighing on the heads of the countless people in Daesu City. Anyone who dared to oppose it was an enemy of the Tang dynasty and the imperial court. To be an enemy of the emperor is to be an enemy to the officials and local tyrants and evil gentry in Daesu City. In order to gain promotion and make money to please their superiors, local officials in Daesu City launched this project regardless of the lives of local people, turning Daesu, which originally did not produce dwarfs, into the hometown of dwarfs in the Tang dynasty. Xiaopingan wanted to kill someone, but he no longer knew who to kill. After calming down, Xiaopingan directly ordered the officials around him, go to the city to find a doctor to treat the children here. At the same time, seize and inventory the properties of Changjiun Villa, and then find the families and parents of these children and let them come lead people. After hearing this, an official next to him couldn't help but stepped forward and reminded in a worried low voice, Sir, it's the day of tribute soon. Days who used to pay tribute to dwarfs to the court every year. If you let all these people go, now, the observers and the imperial court are asking why there are no tributes from Days who. I wonder how you are going to deal with it? This is no small matter. In this era, if a local official dared to withhold tribute from the court and the emperor, it would be more than just a remonstrance. It would challenge the order of the entire court and officialdom. It will definitely create huge waves and at the same time bear huge pressure. The official who reminded Xiaopingan wanted Xiaopingan to notice that this matter was not that easy to handle. It's easy to release these people now, but what about Days whose tribute? For officials, paying tribute is a big deal. Days who will not turn the children of the people of Daesu City into dwarfs to pay tribute to the court this year, and will not do so again in the future. This tribute matter will be stopped by myself. The higher UPS will investigate. I will bear all the problems and will not affect you. Even if the court takes my head away, my decision will not change. Xiaopingan said loudly to all the officials in the governor's office, when you serve as an official, you must benefit one party. This statement is my creed. I encourage you all. When the officials in the governor's office heard Xiaoping's words, they were shocked. The governor actually dared to withhold tribute. The strike of tribute in Dazhu City will surely shake the entire officialdom of the Tang dynasty and Chang'an. After being shocked, the officials of the governor's office looked at Xiaoping and had a different feeling. For the sake of the people of Dazhu City, the new governor had put his life and death aside. An official was silent for a moment, with complicated eyes, and suddenly bowed to Xiaoping and said, "As long as your excellency remains in office as governor, I will let you control me at your command. I will let you be driven by your majesty." Other officials from the governor's office also bowed to Xiaoping one by one and said in unison. Golden Summoner. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 200. Mother. Stone, stone, come here and let mom have a look, let mom have a look. The citizen who blocked the road to complain hugged his child tightly and burst into tears. While holding the child, he kowtowed to Xiaoping, "Thank you, sir, thank you, sir." The crowd and people outside the villa were already excited. After hearing the news, people from Dazhu City rushed to Xuanhuan Villa. The scene of the robbed children meeting their relatives was a mixture of sadness and joy. In addition, it has been so long that those relatives who have come to visit can no longer even recognize their own children, because those children, whom they have not seen for many years, have been mutilated and turned into dwarfs. Their physiques and appearances have been greatly changed, and they can only slowly recognize each other slowly. Xiaoping asked Zheng Ti to drive the child and the woman home in a carriage, and left the matters at the villa to his subordinates. As soon as he arrived in Dazhu City today, he solved Xuanhuan Villa, which was considered a victory. However, Xiaoping knew that this was just the beginning. Whether he could successfully strike tribute in Dazhu City this time would depend on the subsequent interactions with the court and officialdom. Game. Once the next game fails, the court and the people above may change another governor at any time, allowing Dazhu City to resume paying tribute to dwarf figurines. So, this matter is not over yet. While Xiaoping was recalling all the recorded deeds from Yangcheng to Dazhu in his mind, he returned to the governor's mansion with the officials in the governor's mansion. When they returned to the governor's mansion, the entire Dazhu City was in a state of commotion. People lined the streets to greet them and shouted Qing Tian. The situation was completely different from when Xiaoping first arrived. The governor's office in Dazhu City is not big. It is an official office just inside the courtyard. It is divided into a front hall and a back hall. The front hall of the governor's office is the office of the governor's office, while the back hall is the official residence of the governor. After traveling in and out of the city for a long time, it was already evening when we returned to the governor's mansion. The officials of the governor's office had already prepared the reception banquet. After hastily finishing the reception banquet, Xiaoping returned to the back hall and went to the study to write a memorial to the emperor. The current emperor of Chang'an City is Li Shi, Dizong of the Tang dynasty. To be fair, Li Shi is ambitious. He always wants to achieve something, and wants to work hard to create a situation like the Kaiwan dynasty for the Tang dynasty. It is unfair to say that he is a coward. It's just that Li Shi was born at the wrong time. There were conflicts between vassals and towns outside, and he didn't know how to employ people at home. He didn't know how to recognize people. While he wanted to be the emperor of the sage and restore the glory of the Tang dynasty, he was struggling at the same time. Due to some random things, many loyal ministers were driven out of Chang'an by him. In the end, he even began to rely on eunuchs to rule, which is really surprising. Xiaoping knew that in history, Yang Cheng wrote a memorial to Li Shi because of the tribute strike, but he had never seen the memorial and did not know how it was written. At this time, Xiaoping could only write it by himself. Xiaoping thought for a long time in the study, and finally decided to start with emotion first, and then reason, and persuaded Li Shi to give up the dwarf tribute from Daesu. With this thought in his mind, Xiaopinggan took the pen and started writing. When I first arrived in Daesu city, a woman knelt down and cried out for injustice. She said that her child had been snatched away, and that mother and child were separated. It was truly a human tragedy. The woman was crying and grabbing the ground. Her tears were streaming down her face, and her voice was like weeping blood. His condition is very miserable. Mencius said, the heart of compassion is the essence of benevolence. Everyone has it, and I can't bear to hear it. The Prime Minister, who was a woman of the common people, thought about the past events in the second year of Xuanhuan. The traitor Shi Siming led his army to capture Luoyang. His biological mother, Empress Dowager Ruijin of the Tang dynasty, disappeared in the chaos. Your Majesty lost her mother before she could reach the throne. The birth and death of the birth mother is truly a human tragedy and a misfortune for the country. The descendant Zong ascended the throne and searched for the Empress Dowager Ruijin for more than 10 years but could not find it. Your Majesty is the most loving and filial, and the heart of missing your mother is known to the world. The love of the son of a man is also the conduct of a king. Since your Majesty is the king of the world, how can it be seen that the mother of the world loses her son, and the son loses his mother? The separation of mother and child among animals in the mountains is also unethical and contrary to the holy way, not to mention humans. I am your Majesty's minister, how can you see that this tragedy happened in Daesu and turned a blind eye? When I asked about it, I found out that the woman's son had been captured by cruel officials and evil gentry, who wanted to put him in an urn and raise him for more than 10 years before turning into a dwarf. I will present it to His Majesty as a tribute. In the past, the traitor Shi Siming separated your Majesty from his biological mother in Luoyang. Now there are cruel officials and evil gentry in Daesu who use your Majesty's name to separate mothers and sons of countless people in Daesu city. This is a disaster, even worse than Shi Siming's. This cruel official and evil gentry bullies the people. For a subordinate to deceive a superior, it is contrary to ethics and against the holy way. If the Empress Dowager Ruijin were in Daesu, she would not be able to bear to see her. Xiaopingyan wrote less than half of the memorial. Xuanhuan knocked on the door outside and said that there were officials in the government who wanted to see him. Xiaopingyan put down the memorial and asked Xuanhuan to call someone in. After a while, he saw Sakang of the governor's mansion walking in with his head lowered and several account books in his hand. Sakang of the governor's office is a civil servant in his 50s, tall and thin, with a cautious appearance. The lower official is guilty. Please punish the governor. As soon as the Sakang saw Xiaopingyan, he knelt down and touched his forehead to the ground, not daring to raise his head. What's your crime? Stand up and tell me, Xiaopingyan said calmly. Yes, the Sakang stood up cautiously, but still lowered his head and hunched his waist, and handed several account books in his hand to Xiaopingyan. The sins of the lower official are all in these account books. If you dare to hide it, please ask the adults to see it. Xiaopingyan took the account book and opened it and flipped through a few pages. Xiaopingyan frowned and almost couldn't help scolding her again. Putting down the account book, Xiaopingyan's face was as dark as water. How long has this been going on? Your Excellency, this has been the case since Xuanhuan took charge of the Daesu governor's office. He also asked the officials below, and the officials also said that the Daesu governor's office has always handled it this way. Although the official felt it was inappropriate, but I can't change it. I can only follow the rules of Sakang and don't dare to go beyond them. The Sakang official answered cautiously. Damn it, Xiaopingyan was wondering before why the officials in Daesu city didn't compensate the people at all after robbing their children. The original compensation had already been corrupted by them. It's not like those people didn't know about the Tang dynasty. What is the amount of supplementary soil stipulated in the law, but they do not let the people of Daesu city know. For every child they robbed, those people reported to the treasurer to receive 50 quasi silk as compensation. The more children they robbed, the more quasi-silk they received here. According to the treasurer's accounts, these quasi-silks were distributed to those who had lost the silk. The child's family, but in reality there is none. With this amount alone, the subsidy that those people evacuate from the treasurer every year amounts to thousands of silk pieces. This is not a small amount of money. You must know that in this era, a horse only costs 40 pieces of silk, and the profit sharing the people who made the money were the officials related to the governor's office, and they euphemistically called it tribute salary. And because they could pretend to receive the compensation money from the land offering, the officials in Daesu city were extremely enthusiastic about paying tribute to the dwarfs, and they arrested only a few children rather than too many. What else do you know? Tell me. The treasurer gritted his teeth and said, Sir, the imperial court only needs one dwarf every year for its soil sacrifice, and most of the many dwarf puppets in Changjiun Villa are captured from ordinary people's homes in the name of tribute and trained into dwarfs. After the opera figurines are made, they are then sold to Chang'an and wealthy families in various places. Many dwarf opera figurines are even sold to the western regions and other places. Every year, foreign merchants come to Daesu to purchase dwarf opera figurines. Xiaopingan took a deep breath. How much money can they get from selling a dwarf puppet? The less is more than 1,000 taels of silver, the more is thousands of cars of silver. Does everyone in the governor's office know about this? Basically know everything. Then why did Zhuangqiao end up like this? Does no one dare to take care of it? Indeed, no one dares to take care of it, because this matter is related to tribute. If there is no tribute, the governor will have nothing to do with it, so he can only turn a blind eye. Everyone in the governor's mansion has received tribute salary. I won't say much. In addition, Zhuangqiao often said that he knew the nobles in Chang'an City. Rich nobles often came to buy and sell dwarf theatrical figurines for him. Everyone didn't know how deep his background was. This Daesu none of the officials in the city dared to offend him. As soon as Zhuangqiao said he was short of people, someone here would help him go to the homes of poor people to arrest people.